I would like to welcome a special guest tonight. Julie Chaffee is going to be joining us, and she is going to kick off our Relationships 101 series. Julie Chaffee is a social worker who has a wealth of knowledge and information on the subject of teenage boys and girls.
Yeah? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be more educational and teaching because it's setting the groundwork for what you guys are doing as you go forward. So to make it a little more enjoyable, I brought candy. I know you have some in front of you, but I have two choices. It's really important that you guys follow the rules of the candy eating, okay? So this bag has like Warheads and Sour Patch Kids and all kinds of sour, sugary stuff. But it's not packaged, so you can take a huge handful of this if you want this. Or in here we've got chocolate hearts, but they're packaged. They're cute little puppies on them, but you can only have one. Okay? So you have to choose, do you want one of these or a handful of sour sugar? Okay, so I'm going to pass it around. Help yourself.
Two? You want sour or all head figures? She wants sweet, he wants sour.
All right, we're going to get... Yeah, if you get the sour, you can have a big handful if you want. But there are Warheads in there, so be careful. All right, we're going to get started with a true-false quiz. Man, these lights are bright. Jason, do you have the quiz? You're going to be passing that out?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll get the lights on in a second.
Okay. And does everyone have a pencil, pen? Are you guys able to... Jason, are they going to get those? Yeah? Oh, that's better. Yeah, I like that better. Has everybody got... Who has not gotten candy yet? Where are we at in that? Back there? Okay. Who still needs a true-false quiz? Do you guys... Couch people, do you have the quiz? You guys on the couch? Hello, couch people. Do you guys have the quiz? Raise your hands if you have the quiz. Who does not have it?
What's the answer to number one?
No cheating!
Oh, it's not an open book test?
All right, go ahead and do a true false.
Yes?
You guys got like 2 minutes. We don't have a whole lot to do. Is mess you up a little bit. And can we have the house lights on the whole time, Jason, please? Okay. If you guys chose the sweet, the chocolate, I want you to stand up and come into these tables up front. So I want you to move where you're at, and I want to see who chose sweets. We're doing these front tables here. If you chose sour, I want you to be back on the couches and on the tables on this side. What are you two girls? Sweet or sour? Come over here. What are you guys back there? Sweet or sour? If you're sour, go that way. And if you're sweet, I want you over here. I need to see a distinct. What are you guys? Sweet or sweet? Come over here on this side. Good. So you guys are sweet over here. You guys what? Over? Yeah. Alright, so we've got a nice distinction. We've got our sweet side over here, we've got sour. How many people are back? Okay, all of you guys were sour back there in the couches? Okay, alright, good. Nice break. Alright, so let's go through the quiz. Brain size. The female brain is typically about 10% larger than the male brain. Who says true? Raise your hand. It's false. The male brain is typically about 10% larger than the female brain. Although the extra mass does not give male females more processing power. This doesn't make men more intelligent. Rather, science believes the reason for the increased brain mass is to accommodate the bigger body mass and muscle groups of males. It has nothing to do with whether you're smart or not. Actually, there is a pretty even ratio in IQ between males and females. All right, number 2. Many men are left brain dominant, while women tend to be more evenly balanced between left and right brain processing. This is true. Men are left brain dominant. So, if any of you guys have taken psych in high school yet, left brain is where the cognition is. Right brain is more feelings, emotions, intuitive, the arts, creative side. So men are much better at doing kind of one task at a time, being logical, doing spatial things, things that take focus, concentration. Women, we have the ability to cross both hemispheres. We do it very easily and intuitively. That helps us have better intuition, that makes us better caregivers, that makes us be able to multitask, that also helps us be more creative and verbal and communicative as well. Okay, number 3, women have better communication skills and emotional intelligence than men.
True.
Yeah. I don't think that one was really hard. Women have better communicational skills and emotional intelligence than men. Women tend to be group-oriented and are apt to seek solutions by talking through issues. Men can have trouble picking up on emotional cues, surprise, surprise, unless they're clearly verbalized, making for tricky communication between the sexes. Did someone ask a question? No? Okay. All right. Stress. When faced with stressful situations, women usually employ the fight or flight tactics.
You have to do number 4.
Thank you. I don't have my glasses on. Mathematical skills. On standardized tests, women often score higher on math tests than men.
True.
False. The inferior parietal lobe, which controls numerical brain function, is larger in males than in females. And on standardized tests, men often score higher on math tests than females. Not always, but often. All right, 5, stress. When faced with stressful situations, women usually employ the fight or flight tactics. True or false?
False.
True.
So fight or flight is when something stressful happens and you're either going to take them down or you're going to run away. And that is actually false. Men do that. Women tend to tend or befriend responses that is rooted in natural instincts for caring. So women have a desire to kind of talk it out. Why can't we all be friends? Let's just make it all work. So that one is actually false. Language. Men often excel at language-based tasks.
False. False.
False.
False.
Women excel at language-based tasks for 2 reasons. Brain areas that deal with language are larger in females, and females process language in both hemispheres of their brain, which give them a little bit of an edge.
I have a question. Is oration included in that, like public speaking?
That's a learned skill, and that's something that typically is done with practice and repetition versus just verbal communication. So, no, if you practice public speaking or speaking in front of a crowd like this, that isn't necessarily geared towards women. And that's more of a learned skill. All right, 7. Men are more in touch with their feelings and are better expressing their emotions.
False. True.
It says true.
It's false. It's generally false, guys. Yeah. Women are much better at connecting with others. But unfortunately, this also means that women are have a higher tendency towards depression. So because we have a better job or a better ability to have emotions and be connected with them, we're also going to have more of a tendency to go into our little funky modes. Yeah. Crazy works at times. Spatial abilities. Spatial abilities means knowing where you are in space, not like that kind of space, but around you. Being able to manipulate things, knowing how to put something together. So if you get something from IKEA, you know what I mean, and it takes 500 different parts to put together women or men are better at that. The question is, women are often report difficulty with spatial tasks, both on test or real life. True or false? True. Women have a harder time with that. Men have a better time in their mind being able to mentally rotate objects. And so men have a better ability at that. Men are more likely to be dyslexic or have other language disabilities. It's true. It's true.
Mr. Perfect Score.
And then number 10, males are more prone to autism, ADHD, and Tourette syndrome, while women are more susceptible to mood disorders like anxiety and depression.
True.
So just the way that our brains are created, men tend to have a little more difficulty or tendency to some of the disorders that deal with processing and thought and controlling body and impulses. Women have more emotion. So were you guys surprised by any of these things?
No.
Not for you. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of education, teaching about what's different between a girl's brain and a boy's brain and why that matters. This is the beginning of your relationship series, and to know what it is that makes you guys different helps in deciding what works and doesn't work in relationships. So how many in here have had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, have been on a date, have had a guy friend or a girlfriend, not romantic dating, but had someone that was a friend of theirs that was a member of the opposite sex? Everyone should be at least raising their hand. You've at least had a friend that's been a girl or a guy. Okay. How many of you guys have found that it's difficult sometimes to figure things out with them? Sometimes. Okay. Well, one of the things you need to learn is that our brains develop and function differently and that God made it that way for a reason. The women's brain has more gray matter, which means that we have more ability to learn, to grow, to work between the two sides. And it's actually in the mother's womb that is decided. There is something in the brain that actually strengthens the two sides in the womb. And that in and of itself, when you're born, a male or a female, that part has already started growing. So you start from the very beginning being different. This is called the corpus callosum. I'm really bad at pronouncing the Latin words. That's stronger in women. Women have the ability to be less risk-taking. They have more emotional ability. They're not as subjected to violence or to being aggressive. And one of the reasons I did this candy thing, so it's a generalized test. I did a little bit of a research thing here. I wanted to see which percentage of guys would choose the sour candy that wasn't packaged nicely and had everybody's hands all over it, plus the impulse of taking a huge big handful versus people who would want, something a little more contained and safe and not as risky. So we see over here we've got actually a higher percentage of guys that chose the sour and a higher percentage of girls that chose the sweet. So it was a pretty accurate experiment. So one of the things that it's important to know is that girls have higher levels of serotonin and oxytocin. Has anyone ever heard of those two chemicals?
I've heard of serotonin, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. So these are chemicals that your brain creates, and they're feel-good chemicals. These are the things that people don't have when they get depressed. They have a depletion of these. And this is also what's created in women when they have a baby. This is what helps them bond to their child. This is what creates that emotional bond. Men don't have that quite as much. They have a little less, and so that's partly why they're not going to deal with depression, but also that's why they have a harder time bonding. So when you're dating or when you're with someone, you're going to find that the girl has more emotions, they're going to want to talk more, they're going to want to have more connection emotionally. Guys aren't going to be as interested in that. Yeah?
What about bipolar? What happens with the chemicals then?
Meaning in your brain?
Yes.
Yeah. Bipolar is a unique disorder that creates a complete imbalance, and it makes you either have really, really high manic times or really low depressed times. So it's a chemical disorder. It's usually genetic, and it is always needing to be managed with medication, but it's something that you can live with. And if you're in a relationship with someone, and just so you know, we don't diagnose people with bipolar till they're over 18 because every teenager is bipolar. Okay, so it's actually not. We actually can't diagnose personality disorders. It's very rare under age 18. But that's a good question. So I'm going to read a couple more of these things, and then what I'm doing is giving you some of this learning, and you guys are going to go in your small groups and apply it. Learn how this impacts you, what this would look like in a relationship. Okay? Boys are significantly more likely than girls to do something dangerous. Risky and dangerous activities can trigger a fight or flight response that gives an excitement or a charge that boys find irresistible. So sometimes you'll see boys, I don't know if you guys ever do this, but they actually do really dumb things. You kind of look at them and you're like, really? You're going to jump off the roof? Or really you're going to keep pushing that, or you're going to speed, or you're going to... That's an irresistible draw for boys. They like that feeling of that fight or flight. They also have less blood flow in the brain, and so they structure, or I'm not even going there, compartmentalized learning, whereas girls have a higher level of blood flow in the brain, and that allows both sides of the brain to work better together. This is important for you guys to know. The male brain is designed to go into rest states in which it renews, recharges, and reorients itself. That only happens for you guys in sleep. You can only get that recharging from sleep. Girls are able to do that without sleep. So because we're able to cross both hemispheres, we have the ability to recharge, rest, kind of get ourselves back together without sleep. Guys, you need that sleep to help you. The more words a teacher uses, the greater a boy is desiring to check out. They don't want to listen, which is very evident here. Girls tend to be a little more interested in the teacher. They're a little more interested in even bonding or coming up with a relationship with someone in that kind of role because they are interested in the relationship. Boys' brains are better suited to symbols, abstractions, pictures, word pictures. They do a lot better with that than things that are going to be more verbal, reading, creative. Girls do better with that. Okay, a couple other things. Typically, boys have a lower attention span than girls do. That lasts, I would say probably forever, but it's supposed to get a little better when guys hit their 20s. Girls also are about 2 years ahead of the game up until the 20s than boys in their emotional and relational ability. So if you're 15 and you're dating a 15-year-old boy and you're a 15-year-old girl, your boyfriend is 2 years behind you. It's like you're dating a 13-year-old boy. Their ability to communicate and talk and understand relationships. If you're an 18-year-old girl, you're dating an 18-year-old boy, you're really dating a 16-year-old because they just are a little slower in the uptake in that area. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that, but a couple other things.
That means I'm only 48?
What?
Does that mean I'm only 48?
You know, if you want to use that to help you feel a little better about your age.
No, Barry, but when you do not
Girls do a lot better at multitasking. Boys focus on a task and transition a little more slowly. They have a difficult time coming out of one activity and going to another. There's a couple things that are interesting to know about how girls do relationships. For girls, social hierarchies, meaning who's sort of the queen bee, actually destroy a relationship. So if you are in a group of girls and there's this back and forth of who's got more power, that destroys a relationship. But for boys, that builds camaraderie and organizes relationships. Guys kind of need that structure to know who's, I think, socially on top, and that helps build it. So even how you guys structure relationships and what feels good to you is completely different. Girls do want to be with friends when they're under stress. So if we are having a bad day, we got in a fight with a friend, a teacher, whatever, we want to be with friends. We want to be with people. We want to talk. We want to process. Guys want to be alone, typically. They don't want to be with others. They don't want to talk. They just want to go in their room, play their music, whatever, and be by themselves. Girls connect sex and sexuality to outcomes, other outcomes. So for girls, we have a desire to have that part of our interactions with people to be the outcome of relationship, the outcome of love, the outcome of being accepted. Boys tend to focus on the sexual activity itself. And so another thing, and I think you're going to talk about this more, but girls, guys are more interested in that particular activity rather than a lifelong commitment. Guys are not ready for that and not able to even understand and communicate. So it's important to know when you're dating somebody, even if they say they love you, they aren't able to draw that understanding between the emotional and the depth as they are the physical. Girls need encouragement to build them up. We do really well when we have people cheering us on. Guys need reality checks to help them reassess and be challenged. So guys are going to do so well with the rah-rah talk. They need more of a reality check and some challenges. So there's a couple different things to think about. We're going to do more integrating with this as you guys are in your small group. I didn't know if you wanted to take a break and ask any questions or if you had any thoughts before we did that. There's a pretty long list of questions. I showed the small group questions to the leaders. You're like, oh wow, those are a lot of questions. So you probably won't go through all of them. What I want you to do as you go into your small groups though is take what we've learned and what we started talking about and think about how it applies to you. The relationships in your life, the relationships you want to have in your life, how you want to be. So who do you want to be as a girlfriend or a boyfriend in a relationship? And see if that helps answer some. To stay at the segregated spots you were before if you don't want to.
But I'm like, you were right.
All right.
No, I get it.
Did everybody get a handout? Lift it up if you did in your small group. Everyone got one? This is for you. This is a lot of what I talked about today. It's in this handout. Written a little differently, a little easier to read. This one is going to be, I think, more common everyday language. The other two have a little more medical terminology, so based on what you're interested in, this gives you a little more information. I want to close with a couple things. The first is that God designed us and our minds and our brains to be different for a reason, okay? He designed us this way so that as we go through life and as we form relationships, hopefully at some point marriages, or being in a world where you're choosing not to, but still having relationships with people of the opposite sex, that it's complementary and it's also working to enhance and support each other. You're not supposed to be doing life with someone exactly like you. God wants us to challenge each other, wants us to grow and learn. So he did this for a reason. The hope for this was to help you guys start thinking about the differences in you and how that affects you in relationships, okay? It's hard. It's hard to date in high school. It's hard to date at this stage of your life. So many things are changing. So many things are not working in the way that they do in another 10 years from now. So it's difficult, and it's really important to be aware of that and to take care of yourself, to be responsible, but also the person that you're dating. You're dating somebody else whose heart and mind and soul needs to be cared for well. The other thing I want to just put out there is that God also designed our mind and our brains to change. So if you're frustrated with something about you, something about your family, or the things that have happened to you in your life that make it difficult for you to be in relationships, there's been hurts, or maybe you do have depression or something that makes it hard, we are designed to change and to grow. That doesn't ever stop. Our brains are created that way. So if you've left here feeling a little bit sad or in despair or like it's never going to get better, it's not true, it will. Any last minute questions or feedback or thoughts before we close? You're welcome. I'm going to close with prayer, right? And then the band, I guess, can come on up when I'm doing that. Okay, let's pray, you guys. Father, thank you for creating us, for being so specific about the ways that our mind does life and learns how to have relationships, learns how to interact with ourselves, with you, and with each other. God, I pray that you would bless the next several weeks of this series, that you would help each person here to learn more about who they are, how you made them, who you want them to be, and treat other people. For those who are currently in relationships, God, I pray that you protect them, create in them an ability to work hard at communicating, learning each other, and protecting each other's mind, heart, soul, or body. Pray this in your name. Amen.